Hey guys, and welcome to...
I'm a lady.
So, in this video, I want to have a look at the women's division. Women's division, not Divas division. And the reason I want to have a look at it is because I want to explore the idea of women's tag team titles. Now, this is something that WWF have actually done before, but we'll get to all of that. We'll have a look at the history of it and also who we think might be some decent tag teams. But to kick things off, we really have to talk about what happened this weekend, and that was obviously the unveiling of the new WWE Women's Championship belt. Beautiful belt. I really do like it. The only criticism I might have of it is where it's got the W, the little swoosh that's at the bottom. That's in red, and the back is in red as well. I mean, like, honestly, even as I'm saying this, I'm thinking, shut up. You know, it's absolutely irrelevant, but I would just have that in black. I just think it's that little detail that would just make that little bit stand out. Anyway, so we had that unveiled by Lita, which was pretty cool. On top of that as well, you know, the three women put on probably the best match for me anyway at the WrestleMania 32 with that triple threat. Thought it was absolutely fantastic, and certainly we saw the marks the next day. Becky, you know, big massive bruise on the side of her face. And then, you know, NXT TakeOver, Asuka Bayley, they also stole the show for me. Well, maybe Sami Zayn Nakamura was probably the better match on that card in truth, but they certainly ran it close. A real massive weekend for women's wrestling, changed the direction of the whole division, renamed the whole division. And so, you know, big thanks to Jim Gore, a good friend of mine on Twitter who and YouTube, who has been, you know, commenting on this for a while. He's said, why are there not women's tag team titles? Completely agree. I think there should be. So that got me to having a look back at the history of women's tag team wrestling. I can tell you that back in 1983, Velvet McIntyre and Princess Victoria signed with the WWF. They were the reigning NWA women's tag team champions. Unfortunately, or fortunately, WWF weren't affiliated with the National Wrestling Alliance at this stage, so the belts were kind of rebranded, and this was the birth of the WWF women's tag team titles. Unfortunately, in 1984, Princess Victoria had a career-ending injury, neck injury, and she was replaced by Desiree Peterson. And so the team continued until they eventually lost the titles in 1985 to really probably the women's tag team in WWF history, and that is the Glamour Girls. The Glamour Girls were Leilani Kai and Judy Martin. Really strong team this is. Both of these girls can work. Leilani Kai is arguably one of the greatest female wrestlers in WWF, WWE history, and she was in this team. Now, it's a little bit sketchy as to how they get the titles. A lot of articles that I've read on this say that they were awarded the titles. There's certainly no footage of a match between these teams, but I know that a match did occur. It was in Egypt, of all places, in 1985. So it's sketchy as to that, if that's when the titles changed. But certainly in 1985, the Glamour Girls become the new women's tag team champions. They also, you know, get a bit of a makeover. They both go blonde. They both get these gold jackets, and they get Jimmy Hart as their manager. They appear at the first Survivor Series as well. Actually, there it is. Now, I've not covered these yet, but I will do a video on these as a separate thing. These are tagged classics. I don't think they were available in the States. I could be wrong. But these were in the UK shortly before the network shortly before the network, maybe 10 years actually, not that short. But you've got you get 2 pay-per-views basically on one DVD set. So this is the first and second annual Survivor Series. I've got a lot of these. As I say, I'll do them as a separate video. But the reason I want to show you this is because in Survivor Series 1987, it's got a list of all the matches on here. But Survivor Series 1987, we've got the Fabulous Moolah, Rockin' Robin, Velvet McIntyre, and the Jumping Bomb Angels going up against Sherry Martel, Leilani Kai, Judy Martin, Donna Cristanello, and Dawn Marie. A match actually that I really want to go back and watch now, because interestingly you've got the Glamour Girls that we've just spoken about on Sherry Martel's team, but on the Fabulous Moolah's team you've got the Jumping Bomb Angels. This was Survivor Series, and the Jumping Bomb Angels and the Glamour Girls actually meet in a title match in the following Royal Rumble, which just so happens to be the first ever Royal Rumble, 1988. So on the card you've got Glamour Girls against Jumping Bomb Angels for the WWF Women's Tag Team titles, and the Jumping Bomb Angels emerge victorious. So the titles change hands again in 1988. A few months later, the Glamour Girls win them back, I think actually over in Japan. They were doing something, must have been a tour of some kind. So they were over there and they win them back, and then shortly after that the titles are abandoned. All in all, they were in the WWF for 6 years, the tag team titles, and that was from 1983 to 1989. That's basically when they get abandoned. So not the longest of histories, but or the most decorated either, but they existed. Something which I certainly didn't know about. You see, these kind of matches, these are the kind of things that you watch on a pay-per-view if you go back and watch the old pay-per-views. And as a kid, don't really pay it much attention. You know, I would have been young when I was watching these 80s pay-per-views. I would have watched them in the 90s when I would have been 12, 13, 14. And for whatever reason, it just wouldn't have clicked that, oh, there was women tag titles. You know, no way. So, you know, now that I'm an adult, I can go back and I can appreciate it more and understand what it means more. And as I said, I'm actually quite looking forward to going back and watching that match. And so I suppose you could look at it then and go, well, have there been any teams really since then? Is there anyone that, you know, we could have formed a team with? And of course there have been. Lay Cool, which was Layla and Michelle McCool. They were a famous team, tag team, used to tag all the time together. There was never any tag team championships around for them to win. I suppose the closest they came was Layla actually won in a tornado kind of mixed tag match. She won the women's championship, and Lay Cool decided they would share it. So they both were the co-holders of the women's championship for a time. So that's probably the closest that they came to both having you know, a championship or a tag championship. As well as that, you've got the Divas of Doom, which is Natalya and Beth Phoenix. They quite regularly tagged together. Again, there was no tag titles for them to win, but they were a force. And even when they were competing against each other, those girls put on the first ever women's table match in WWF, WWE history. And then the Bellas, you know, you've got twin sisters who would have been perfect for women's tag titles. So there has been opportunity for WWE to reintroduce tag titles, but it does feel now that they're taking the whole women's division a lot more serious than they ever have before. And if ever we're going to see them return, you know, we now feels like as good a time as any. So I suppose with that being said, you kind of have to look down the current roster and go, well, who could you put as a team? where would these tag teams come together? And I gotta be honest, you should give it some thought, because it's quite a bit of fun just having a look and going, well, how would they work together, and what would their story be, and what name could you give them as a team? For me, there's two girls straight away that come to mind. Some of you might not have heard of them because they're down in NXT and they're not used every single week, but Peyton Royce and Billie Kay. Both of these girls were Australian, both very tall, both with long legs. Always helps. Very attractive girls, but they can work in the ring, and I just think that because they're both Australian, I'm not saying call them the Kangaroos or anything like this, but all I'm saying is that there's something there. There's a reason for them to be together. They're two girls that might just struggle on their own in singles competition. After that, I came up with a team that I was quite excited about, a team that I would call something like Mean Girls. And that would be Alicia Fox and Cameron. Now, Cameron's not a brilliant in-ring worker, but you can hide that in tag work because you don't have to be in the ring all the time. Plus, also, you can use some really good heel tactics. Other teams I was thinking about, I thought it'd be really cool for the longest reigning Divas champion, Nikki Bella, to try and find a replacement for Brie, what with Brie potentially retiring. I mean, Nikki could be done as well. We don't know what's going on with her neck injury and whatnot. So I thought it'd be cool to put her with Eva Marie. I don't have an appetite to watch Eva Marie on her own, and I think that Eva would benefit by having someone with Nikki's experience, the longest reigning Divas champion ever, training her and shouting advice from the edge of the ring. Plus, Eva could be getting beaten up, and then she could tag in Nikki. Nikki could come in, do all the work. They could pick up the victory. Eva could look smug. I just like that. The kind of the pupil and the teacher. It's got that kind of Karate Kid feel to it. So I think I just compared Nikki Bella to Mr. Miyagi, but let's move on from that. And then also I was thinking Lana and Summer Rae, both of them blonde hair. There is a stronger connection than that. Both of them have got blonde hair, and I just think that they could be the kind of, not mean girls, but the kind of upper class, very looking down on people, kind of the it girls, if you will. I kind of liked that. Good little heel team. So there's 4 teams there, and you could put even more together because I've not touched the kind of the girls that are in real competition at the moment. I've not used Sasha, I've not used Becky, I've not used Charlotte, I've not used Emma, I've not used Natalia, I've not used Bailey, I've not used Asuka. The list goes on and on and on. Tamina, Naomi. I've not used any of these. So you could form even more teams. And then who's to say you don't bring some in, bring some specialist tag teams over. I just think it's such an exciting time for women's wrestling. Not only now, but getting you to want to go back and watch the history of it all. And if you're going to go back, you might as well go back to the longest reigning women's tag team champions that held the titles from 1955 to 1959. And that was Penny Banner and Lorraine Johnson. Again, I don't know a great deal about these girls, but again, makes me want to go back and check it all out and find out about them. So yeah, a real exciting time for women's wrestling. I'd love for them to bring back the women's tag team titles. I think that there's great opportunity there for them to do that with the current roster. And please drop it in the comments below. I'd love to know your thoughts. Can you think of some teams that we could put together WWE wise? What names would you give them? Hit me over at Twitter at Wrestling Days UK and let me know what you come up with. Also, if you've not subscribed to this channel, it'd be brilliant if you did. I really would appreciate it because I keep putting these videos through as and when I can, and I wouldn't want you to miss out on anything. Yeah, cool. Really appreciate you watching. Thank you very much. I have more videos for you to come, as always, and hopefully see you again next time. Bye for now.